The microwave was sparking again when I heard my wife laugh like she hadn't laughed at me in 3 years. Problem was, she wasn't talking to me. She was in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear, voice dropped to that husky whisper she used to save for Saturday mornings before coffee. "I can't wait to see you again, babe," she purred. I'm James Mitchell, 42 years old, owner of Mitchell Appliance Repair, and apparently the last man in America who still believes marriage vows mean something. The microwave gave another pathetic spark, like it was commenting on my life. If I were a sitcom dad, this would be where the laugh track kicks in. Instead, I'm the guy holding needle-nose pliers and watching 20 years of marriage circle the drain. Rebecca walked past the doorway, still whispering sweet nothings to whoever Babe was. She didn't even glance my way. Why would she? I was just the furniture now, the reliable husband who fixed things and paid bills and pretended not to notice when she came home smelling like another man's cologne. The thing about being an appliance repair guy is you learn to spot problems before they explode in your face. A rattling compressor, a frayed wire, a seal that's lost its grip, they all give warnings if you know how to listen. Marriages are the same way. The signs were all there. Late nights at the office, new underwear she didn't wear for me, that guilty smile when her phone buzzed during dinner. But I'd been ignoring the warning signs because I'm an idiot who still believed in fixing things instead of throwing them away. Rebecca finally ended her call and strutted back through the living room in that black dress that used to drive me crazy. Now it just made me wonder who she was wearing it for. "Working late again tonight," she announced, not asking, not apologizing, just informing me like I was her secretary. "Big case?" I asked, not looking up from the microwave. "You could say that." She grabbed her purse and keys. "Don't wait up." The door slammed behind her, and I was alone with my broken appliances and broken marriage. But here's the thing about being good with your hands. Once you know what's broken, you can usually figure out how to fix it, or in this case, how to break it properly. I spent the next hour nursing a whiskey and thinking about Michelle, the woman I'd been seeing on and off for the past 6 months. She kept insisting we were just dating, which was her way of saying she wanted all the benefits of a relationship without any of the commitment. Sound familiar? At least Michelle was honest about being selfish. My wife was still pretending to be something she wasn't. Around midnight, I decided to check Rebecca's home office for the insurance papers I needed for a client. That's when I found the second phone. It was tucked behind her law books, a cheap burner phone that had no business being in my house. The screen lit up when I touched it, showing a string of text, messages to someone named T. "Can't stop thinking about this afternoon. Your husband suspect anything? Meet me at the Marriott tomorrow. Same room." And then the photo that made my blood freeze. Rebecca, in our bed, wearing nothing but a smile and a man's gold watch that definitely wasn't mine. I scrolled through weeks of messages, each one a knife twist in my gut. Explicit photos, hotel receipts, plans for weekend getaways while I thought she was at legal conferences. The watch appeared in several photos, always on the nightstand, always catching the light like it was mocking me. My hands were shaking by the time I reached the bottom of the message thread. 3 months of betrayal, laid out in high-definition detail. 3 months of coming home to kiss a woman who'd been screwing another man in my bed. I poured another whiskey and started planning. The next morning, Rebecca was already gone when I woke up. No note, no goodbye kiss, just the lingering smell of expensive perfume and cheaper lies. I called my assistant Tommy and told him to handle the morning appointments. I had surveillance work to do. I'd always wondered who wore the pants in this marriage. Now I knew whose pants they were, and whose watch. Rebecca's law firm was downtown, but according to her credit card statements, she'd been spending a lot of time at Elite Fitness on the north side. Funny thing about credit cards? They don't lie like wives do. I parked across the street from the gym at noon and waited. Sure enough, Rebecca's BMW pulled into the parking lot 20 minutes later. She wasn't alone. The man who got out of the passenger side was everything I wasn't. Tall, muscular, wearing a gold chain that caught the sunlight. He had the kind of artificial tan that screamed car salesman or personal trainer, and when he grabbed Rebecca's ass before they walked into the gym, I knew I'd found T. I sat in my truck for 2 hours, watching them through the gym's floor-to-ceiling windows. They weren't working out. They were putting on a show for each other. Rebecca bending over equipment she didn't need to use, the musclehead spotting her with his hands in places that had nothing to do with proper form. When they finally came out, sweaty and laughing, I was ready. I followed them to the parking lot behind the building, where they started making out against his car like teenagers. A red Camaro with custom rims and a license plate that read Trent 1. Of course his name was Trent. I waited until they went back inside for round 2, then got to work. Sugar in the gas tank is a myth, but salt water in the oil reservoir isn't. I popped the hood and poured in a full bottle of salt water, then moved on to the tires. 4 quick slashes with my utility knife, and Trent's ride wasn't going anywhere. For the finishing touch, I left a note under his windshield wiper. Next time, I won't be so gentle. The husband. I was back in my truck when my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. It was a photo of me standing next to Trent's car, utility knife in hand. The message was simple. Smile, you're on camera. I looked around the parking lot and spotted her, Mrs. Callahan from my neighborhood, sitting in her ancient Buick with a telephoto lens pointed right at me. The old bat had followed me here. My phone rang before I could process what this meant. James Mitchell? The voice was smooth, confident, everything mine wasn't at that moment. Yeah. This is Trent. I believe you left me a note. I believe you've been screwing my wife. He laughed, the kind of laugh that said he'd been through this before with other husbands. You want to play games, old man? Game on. The line went dead, and I sat there staring at my phone, realizing I just declared war on a man who had nothing to lose and everything to gain from destroying me. But here's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. People never see the knockout punch coming. The photo arrived in Rebecca's text messages before I even made it home. Mrs. Callahan had sent it anonymously, along with the message, "Your husband knows." I only found out because Rebecca confronted me the second I walked through the door. What the hell is this? She shoved her phone in my face, showing me the picture of myself vandalizing Trent's car. I looked at it like I was seeing it for the first time. Looks like someone caught me having a bad day. You slashed his tires? Are you insane? Probably, but I'm not the one screwing around behind my spouse's back. Her face went white, then red, then settled on the cold mask she wore in court. I don't know what you think you know. I know about the burner phone. I know about the Marriott. I know about the gold watch he leaves on our nightstand when he's done with you in our bed. For a second, just a second, I saw fear in her eyes. Then the lawyer kicked in. You went through my private things, that's a violation of my privacy. And screwing Trent is a violation of our marriage vows. Guess we're both criminals now. She turned away, probably calculating her next move. Rebecca always was better at strategy than I was, but she'd never played against someone who had nothing left to lose. I want you out, she said finally. It's my house, too. We'll see about that. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. I'm staying at my sister's tonight. Don't be here when I get back tomorrow. After she left, I sat in my kitchen drinking whiskey and thinking about how fast a life can fall apart. 20 years of marriage, gone. My reputation in this small town, probably gone too once word got around. My relationship with my daughter Samantha, who worshipped her mother, definitely gone. But I still had my business, my friends at Murphy's Bar, and my pride. Or so I thought. The next evening at Murphy's, I found out how wrong I was. Hey, James? Billy Kowalski waved me over to the usual table where I'd been drinking with the same guys every Friday for 10 years. Heard you had some excitement yesterday. Word travels fast in a town this size. I sat down and ordered a beer, ready to tell my side of the story. Instead, I got ambushed. Man, what were you thinking? Dave Paulson shook his head. Vandalizing some guy's car like a jealous teenager? Some guy? He's been screwing my wife. So get a divorce lawyer. Don't go slashing tires like a psycho. The table went quiet. These were supposed to be my friends, guys I'd known since high school, guys I'd helped move and loaned money to and stood up for at their weddings. You don't understand, I started. I understand you're making yourself look like a fool, Billy interrupted. Rebecca's a successful lawyer, and you're... What, a guy who fixes toasters for a living? The words hit harder than any punch Trent could have thrown. Us, maybe she needed something more, Dave added. Can't blame a woman for wanting to upgrade. I stood up so fast my chair fell over. Upgrade? Come on, James. You've been coasting for years. When's the last time you took her somewhere nice? When's the last time you even tried to? I didn't stick around to hear the rest. I threw a 20 on the table and walked out, leaving behind the only friends I had in this town, but the humiliation wasn't over. Saturday morning, I was at the hardware store buying supplies when I overheard 2 women talking in the next aisle. Did you hear about Rebecca Mitchell's husband? Completely lost it, apparently, slashing tires like some kind of maniac. I always thought there was something off about him. Too quiet, you know? The quiet ones are always the craziest. Poor Rebecca. She works so hard, and this is what she comes home to. I left without buying anything and drove straight to the boxing gym where my old friend Alex trained fighters. If I was going to be the villain in everyone else's story, I might as well learn how to play the part. Alex took one look at me and pointed to the heavy bag. "Whatever's eating you, take it out on the leather, not on people's cars." I spent an hour beating the hell out of that bag, and Alex spent an hour watching me do it. When I was done, sweating and exhausted, he handed me a towel and some advice. "You want to know the difference between getting mad and getting even?" I waited. Getting mad makes you stupid. Getting even makes you smart. And getting caught makes you both. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying if you're going to fight dirty, don't leave fingerprints." That night, I started doing research. Real research, the kind that doesn't leave digital footprints or paper trails. I drove to 3 different libraries in 3 different towns, using their computers to dig into Trent's background. Turns out Trent Morrison wasn't the successful businessman he pretended to be. He'd lost. His house to foreclosure 2 years ago, had 3 credit cards and collections, and owed money to some very unfriendly people. The flashy car, the expensive clothes, the gold jewelry, it was all borrowed time and maxed out credit. But the real gold mine was his employment history. Trent worked at Premier Auto Sales, the biggest dealership in town, selling luxury cars to people who could actually afford them. His boss was Walter Grimm, a man known for his zero-tolerance policy on employee drama. I also found out where Trent lived, a high-end condo complex called Riverside Heights that he definitely couldn't afford on a car salesman's salary, which meant either he was better at sales than his credit report suggested, or he was running some kind of side hustle. While I was playing detective, my personal life kept getting worse. Michelle had heard about the tire slashing incident and decided our casual dating relationship was too complicated. She broke up with me via text message, which would have been insulting if I'd actually cared, but then she made it personal. I found out through a mutual friend that Michelle had been posting on social media about our relationship, painting me as an emotionally abusive control freak who couldn't handle a strong, independent woman. She'd taken screenshots of our private conversations and twisted them to make me look like a stalker. The irony was beautiful. She'd spent months insisting we were just dating whenever I tried to treat her like a girlfriend. But now that it was over, she was acting like I'd destroyed the love of her life. 2 could play that game? I created a fake social media account and started commenting on her posts with screenshots of my own. Messages where she begged me to pay for dinner, complained about her other casual boyfriends, and explicitly stated that she didn't want a serious relationship. Within 48 hours, her narrative fell apart. Her friends started asking uncomfortable questions, and Michelle deleted all the posts about me. She even sent me a private message asking me to be mature about this. I replied with a single word: no. It felt good to win something, even if it was just a petty social media war with a woman I didn't love. But the real victory was realizing I had a talent for this kind of strategic thinking. I'd been playing defense my whole life, letting other people set the rules and dictate the terms. Time to go on offense. Sunday dinner at my sister-in-law's house was supposed to be a family tradition, but it turned into an ambush. Rebecca was there, of course, playing the role of the long-suffering wife, but she wasn't alone. Trent was sitting at my place at the table. "James?" My sister-in-law Carol tried to act surprised to see me. "We didn't think you were coming." "Wouldn't miss it." I looked at Trent, who was wearing the same gold watch from the photos. "I see we have a guest." "Trent's been such a help to Rebecca during this difficult time," Carol said, not meeting my eyes. My daughter Samantha, home from college for the weekend, barely looked up from her phone. Mom deserves to be happy. Trent makes her laugh. The words hit like a slap. My own daughter, taking her mother's side without even asking for mine. "That's nice," I said. "What does he do for work, Trent?" "I'm in automotive sales." He had the kind of smile that probably sold a lot of cars to people who couldn't afford them. "Must be lucrative. Nice watch." His hand moved instinctively to cover the watch, and I saw Rebecca tense up. They both knew I'd seen it before. Dinner was awkward, with Carol trying to make conversation while Rebecca and Trent exchanged meaningful looks across the table. I played the part of the bitter ex-husband, making sarcastic comments and drinking too much wine. But when Carol brought out dessert, I stood up and raised my glass. "I'd like to make a toast," I announced. The table went quiet. "To family, fidelity, and finding out who your real friends are." I looked directly at Trent, and to people who think they can take what doesn't belong to them. "James," Rebecca started. "I'm not finished." I turned to my daughter. "And to children who judge their parents without knowing all the facts." Samantha finally looked up from her phone. "Dad, what are you—" "Ask your mother about the burner phone, sweetheart. Ask her about the hotel receipts. Ask her how long she's been lying to both of us." Rebecca stood up so fast her chair fell over. That's enough. You're right. It is enough. I walked around the table until I was standing behind Trent's chair. Stand up. James, don't, Carol pleaded. Stand up, I repeated. Trent stood, and I could see he was bigger than me, younger than me, probably stronger than me. But he'd never been in a real fight, and I could tell by the way he held himself that he was all show and no substance. I grabbed his gold chain and yanked it hard enough to break the clasp. He stumbled forward, and I caught him with an open-handed slap across the face that echoed through the dining room. Touch my wife again, I said quietly, and you won't need this chain. You'll need a toe tag. The room erupted. Carol was screaming, Rebecca was crying, Samantha was recording everything on her phone, and Trent was holding his face like I'd shot him instead of slapped him. I dropped the broken chain on the table and walked out, leaving behind what was left of my family. But as I drove home, I realized something important. I felt more alive than I had in years. The video went viral locally within hours. My daughter had posted it on TikTok with the caption, "When your dad finally snaps, Tom family drama hunch cringe." By Monday morning, half the town had seen me slap Trent and threaten him at a family dinner. The comments were split between people calling me a psycho and people saying Trent had it coming, but the damage was done. Rebecca's law firm got wind of the incident, and suddenly she was dealing with whispers in the hallway and awkward silences in meetings. That's when I realized something beautiful. Rebecca cared more about her reputation than she did about Trent. I spent Monday morning moving money out of our joint accounts and into a personal account I'd opened over the weekend. Legally, it was my money too, and I had every right to protect my assets during what was obviously heading toward a divorce. I also canceled Rebecca's credit cards, the ones in my name that I'd been paying for 20 years. Let her explain to Trent why she couldn't afford their fancy hotel rooms anymore. But the real masterstroke was selling her car. Rebecca drove a BMW that was technically titled in my name because of some tax advantage her accountant had recommended years ago. I'd been making the payments, I'd been paying the insurance, and according to the paperwork, I was the legal owner. I called the dealership where I'd bought it and arranged to sell it back to them for cash. They picked it up from her office parking lot while she was in a meeting. The phone call came 20 minutes later. "Where the hell is my car?" she screamed. "Which car? I only see one car registered to James Mitchell in our driveway." "You son of a bitch. Careful. Your colleagues might hear you using language like that." I hung up and immediately called Tommy at the shop. "Cancel my appointments for the rest of the week. I've got some personal business to take care of." While Rebecca was dealing with the humiliation of having to call an Uber from her law office, I was across town gathering intelligence on Trent Morrison. Premier Auto Sales was the kind of place that sold dreams to people who couldn't afford them. I walked in wearing my best clothes and pretending to be interested in a luxury sedan I had no intention of buying. "Can I help you?" The salesman who approached me was young, eager, and wearing a name tag that said Brad. "I'm looking for Trent Morrison. Heard he was the best salesman you've got." Brad's expression shifted slightly. "Trent's not here today. I'd be happy to help you, though." "When will he be back?" "Actually, Trent doesn't work here anymore. Terminated last Friday." "Interesting." "Really? What happened?" Brad looked around nervously. I probably shouldn't say, but there were some issues with his personal life affecting his work performance. Management doesn't tolerate that kind of drama. I bought Brad a cup of coffee and listened to him gossip about his former colleague. Turns out Trent had been getting phone calls at work from angry creditors, had been spotted at the casino when he was supposed to be at client meetings, and had recently been caught using the dealership's address for his personal mail. The final straw was when Walter Grimm, the owner, received an anonymous tip that Trent was involved in some kind of domestic situation that might reflect poorly on the dealership's reputation. I wondered who might have sent that anonymous tip. With Trent unemployed and Rebecca's credit cards canceled, their relationship was about to face its first real test. But I wasn't done applying pressure. That evening, I drove to Riverside Heights, the upscale condo complex where Trent lived beyond his means. The building had a parking garage with security cameras, but the dumpster area was in a blind spot. I waited until midnight, then got to work. Trent's red Camaro was parked in spot 247, freshly repaired after my tire slashing incident. I didn't touch the car this time. Instead, I focused on the building's exterior. Using a can of spray paint I'd bought with cash 3 towns over, I decorated the garage door with a simple message: "Homewrecker lives here, apt 247. Then I scattered a dozen condoms around his parking spot and tied one to his door handle like a party favor. The security guard would find it during his morning rounds, along with every other resident who used the garage. Trent's neighbors would have questions, and his landlord would have concerns about the kind of tenant who attracted this level of drama, but I saved the best for last. I'd been carrying Trent's broken gold chain in my pocket since the dinner incident. I took it out now and arranged it on his windshield in the shape of a noose held in place with a note. You'll need protection because hell's coming. By Wednesday, the pressure was showing. Rebecca looked exhausted when I saw her at the grocery store, and she was driving a rental car that screamed, "My life is falling apart." "We need to talk," she said when she cornered me in the produce section. "I'm listening." "This has to stop. The vandalism, the financial games, the public humiliation. It has to stop." "I agree. You should stop screwing around with other men." "I made a mistake." "You made a choice. Every day for 3 months, you made the choice to betray me." She looked around nervously, aware that other shoppers were watching us. "What do you want?" "I want my wife back. But she's gone, isn't she? The woman I married wouldn't have done what you did." "People change, James. People grow apart. People also face consequences for their actions." I started to walk away, but she grabbed my arm. "Trent's gone," she said quietly. I turned back. "Gone?" "He left town. Said the situation had gotten too complicated." "Smart man. So it's over. He's gone and we can work this out. We can go to counseling, we can—" "Rebecca." I looked at her the way I used to look at broken appliances that weren't worth fixing. Some things can't be repaired. That night, I got a call from my daughter. "Dad, I need to talk to you." Samantha sounded upset, which was unusual. She'd been giving me the cold shoulder since the dinner incident. "What's wrong?" "I'm getting harassed at school because of that stupid video I posted. People are calling me names, saying I come from a broken family, asking if you hit Mom too." "I never hit your mother." "I know that, but the video makes you look crazy, and now it's affecting my life." "So delete it." "I did, but other people saved it and reposted it. It's everywhere now." I felt a stab of guilt. I'd been so focused on getting revenge on Rebecca and Trent that I hadn't considered how it would affect my daughter. "I'm sorry, Sam. I never wanted you to get hurt by this." "Then why did you do it? Why couldn't you just handle this like a normal person?" "Because normal people get walked on. Normal people get cheated on and humiliated and thrown away when they're no longer useful." "So you decided to become the bad guy?" "I decided to stop being the victim." She was quiet for a long moment. Then, Mom's boss offered her a leave of absence. Said she needs to get her personal life sorted out before it affects her professional reputation anymore. Rebecca's career was everything to her. If her job was in jeopardy, she was probably desperate enough to do something stupid. "Sam, I want you to stay at school for the next few weeks. Don't come home. Don't get involved in whatever happens next." "Dad, you're scaring me." "Good. That means you're paying attention." I hung up and poured myself a drink, thinking about what Rebecca might do when she realized her career was on the line. Desperate people make desperate choices, and I needed to be ready for whatever came next. But first, I had one more person to deal with. Mrs. Callahan had started this whole mess by taking that photo and sending it to Rebecca. The old busybody had been watching my house for weeks, probably hoping for more drama to share with her gossip network. Time to give her something to really talk about. Thursday morning, I knocked on Mrs. Callahan's door with a box of donuts and my best fake smile. "James, what a surprise." She looked nervous, probably wondering if I knew about the photo. "I wanted to thank you for looking out for the neighborhood. Can I come in?" She hesitated, then stepped aside. Her living room was exactly what I'd expected. Lace doilies, cat photos, and a telescope pointed directly at my house. "Nice setup," I said, nodding toward the window. "You must see everything from here." I like to keep an eye on things. Never know what kind of trouble might be brewing. Speaking of trouble, I got an interesting anonymous message the other day. Someone sent my wife a photo of me in a parking lot. Mrs. Callahan's face went pale. "I don't know anything about that." I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot I'd taken of the message thread. The number traces back to a prepaid phone purchased at the Walmart on 5th Street. Security cameras show an elderly woman buying it with cash last Tuesday. She sat down heavily in her recliner. "You can't prove anything." "I don't have to prove anything. I just have to share what I know." I gestured around her living room. "Nice place. Be a shame if the homeowners association found out you were using it to spy on your neighbors and interfere in their personal lives." "You wouldn't—" "Mrs. Callahan, 3 months ago I wouldn't have slashed someone's tires either, but here we are." I set the donuts on her coffee table and headed for the door. "What do you want?" she called after me. "I want you to mind your own business, and I want you to spread the word that James Mitchell isn't the harmless little man everyone thought he was." That afternoon, I put the final phase of my plan into motion. I'd been thinking about Alex's advice. Don't get caught. The problem with revenge is that it usually leaves evidence, and evidence leads to consequences. But what if the consequences were part of the plan? I rented a storage unit across town and filled it with camping equipment, non-perishable food, and cash I'd been withdrawing in small amounts over the past week. Then I drove to the Riverside Warehouse District, looking for the perfect location for what I had in mind. The building I found was perfect, abandoned, isolated, but still structurally sound. It had been a textile factory in the 1980s, but now it was just another piece of Rust Belt decay. More importantly, it had cell phone coverage and electrical power. I spent the rest of the day setting up cameras in strategic locations throughout the building, all connected to a live streaming service I'd set up under a fake name. If this was going to be the end of my old life, I wanted the whole world to see how it happened. Friday evening, I sent identical text messages to Rebecca, Trent, and Lisa. Rebecca's best friend, who I'd recently discovered, had been encouraging the affair from the beginning. Meet me at 1247 River Road, Saturday, 8 p.m. Time to settle this like adults. Come alone. Rebecca called within minutes. James, what is this about? It's about truth. It's about consequences. It's about ending this the right way. I'm not meeting you at some abandoned building. That's insane. Then I guess you'll never know what I found out about Lisa. Silence. What about Lisa? 8 o'clock, Rebecca. Come alone, or don't come at all. I hung up and waited for the other calls. Trent was harder to reach. He'd changed his number and was probably hiding out somewhere, licking his wounds. But I'd done my research. He was staying at a cheap motel on the outskirts of town, probably running low on money and options. I drove to the motel and slipped a note under his door. Your girlfriend's husband knows about the blackmail. Meet me at 1247 River Road, Saturday 8 p.m. if you want to keep this quiet. Lisa was the easiest to manipulate. I called her directly, disguising my voice and pretending to be a private investigator. Ms. Patterson? I'm calling about the Rebecca Mitchell situation. I think we should meet. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm talking about the consulting fees you've been collecting from Mrs. Mitchell, and the photographs you took of her and Mr. Morrison, and the interesting conversation you had with her about divorce settlements. Another silence. Who is this? Someone who's willing to make this go away for the right price. 1247 River Road, Saturday at 8. Come alone. Saturday evening, I arrived at the warehouse early and did a final check of my equipment. The cameras were recording and streaming live to a private channel I'd shared with select members of my former social circle, including my drinking buddies from Murphy's Bar and several of Rebecca's colleagues. The title of the stream was simple: The Truth About Rebecca Mitchell. Rebecca arrived first, looking nervous and overdressed for a warehouse meeting. She'd brought her phone, but no backup, which told me she was more scared of public exposure than physical danger. James, where are you? I stepped out of the shadows, and she jumped. Jesus, you scared me. What is this place? This is where we're going to have an honest conversation for the first time in years. I don't understand what you want from me. I want you to tell the truth. To me, to yourself, to everyone who's been watching this train wreck. Watching? James, what are you talking about? I pointed to the cameras. We're live, Rebecca. Your colleagues, your friends, your family, they're all getting a front row seat to the real Rebecca Mitchell. Her face went white. Turn it off. Turn it off right now. Not until we're finished. The warehouse door opened again, and Trent walked in, looking around nervously. He'd lost weight since I'd last seen him, and his clothes looked like he'd been sleeping in them. What the hell is this? He demanded when he saw Rebecca. This is a family reunion, I said. We're just waiting for one more guest. Lisa arrived 10 minutes later, and the look on her face when she saw the others told me everything I needed to know. She'd been playing all sides, collecting money from Rebecca while feeding information to whoever would pay for it. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced to the cameras, let me introduce the cast of characters who destroyed my marriage. I walked to the center of the warehouse where I'd set up a table with 3 chairs and several manila folders. Rebecca, you're going to sit here and explain to our audience how long you've been cheating on me. I'm not doing anything. This is insane. Trent, you're going to explain how much money you borrowed from my wife and whether you ever intended to pay it back. I don't owe you any explanations, old man. And Lisa, you're going to explain how much Rebecca paid you to encourage her affair and help her hide the evidence. Lisa turned toward the door, but I was already moving to block her exit. Nobody leaves until we're finished. You can't keep us here, Rebecca said. This is kidnapping. This is a conversation. You're free to leave any time you want, but the cameras will keep rolling and everyone will know you walked out instead of telling the truth. I opened the first folder and pulled out bank statements, credit card receipts, and phone records I'd been collecting for weeks. Let's start with the money. Rebecca, you've been taking cash advances on our credit cards to pay for hotel rooms, gifts for Trent, and consulting fees for Lisa. Total amount $43,000. That's impossible. It's all here in black and white. Trent, did you know your girlfriend was going broke keeping you in gold chains and car payments? Trent looked at Rebecca with something between confusion and anger. You said you had money. I do have money. You had money, I corrected. Past tense. I moved it all into accounts you can't access. I opened the second folder and pulled out a stack of photographs. These are surveillance photos I took over the past 2 weeks. Trent entering and leaving Rebecca's hotel rooms, Lisa meeting with both of them separately, and my personal favorite, Rebecca crying in her car after Trent told her he was leaving town. Stop this, Rebecca pleaded. Please, James, we can work this out. We could have worked it out 3 months ago. We could have worked it out when I found the burner phone. We could have worked it out when I caught you lying to my face every single day. I opened the third folder and pulled out the real bombshell. But my favorite discovery is this. A recording I made of Rebecca's conversation with Lisa last week, where she admits she never loved me and was only staying married for financial security. I pressed play on a small digital recorder, and Rebecca's voice filled the warehouse. I should have left him years ago. Trent is everything James isn't. Exciting, passionate, alive. James is just safe, boring, a paycheck with legs. The color drained from Rebecca's face as her own words condemned her. You recorded me? I recorded a conversation that took place in my house, on my property, between my wife and her accomplice. Perfectly legal. Trent was staring at Rebecca like he'd never seen her before. You said you loved me. I do love you. You said you were going to leave him for me. I was going to. Bullshit. Trent stood up and started pacing. You were using me just like you were using him? This was better than I'd hoped. They were turning on each other without any help from me. And Lisa, I continued, let's talk about your consulting fees. I pulled out copies of checks Rebecca had written to Lisa over the past 3 months, totaling nearly $15,000. What exactly were you consulting about? Lisa finally spoke up, her voice shaky. Rebecca needed advice about her marriage. What kind of advice costs $15,000? I was helping her figure out what she wanted. You were blackmailing her. I pulled out my phone and played another recording. This is Lisa, 3 days ago, telling Rebecca she'd expose the affair to Rebecca's boss unless Rebecca paid her another $5,000. The warehouse went dead silent, except for the hum of the cameras. So, here's what really happened, I said, addressing the live stream audience. My wife started an affair with a broke car salesman who was using her for money. Her best friend found out and started blackmailing her for silence, and I was the idiot husband who was paying for all of it without knowing. I looked at each of them in turn. But the story doesn't end there, because when I found out, I didn't just get mad, I got smart. I walked to the final folder and pulled out a thick stack of legal documents. Divorce papers, already filed. Asset protection orders, already approved. And a civil lawsuit against all 3 of you for fraud, emotional distress, and conspiracy. Rebecca's legs gave out, and she collapsed into one of the chairs. You can't sue us. We didn't commit any crimes. I can sue you for anything I want. Whether I win is another question, but the lawsuit is a matter of public record. Your law firm, Trent's future employers, Lisa's social circle, they'll all know exactly what kind of people you are. I started gathering up the folders. The warehouse belongs to a friend of mine. You're welcome to stay here and figure out how you're going to explain this to your families, your employers, and your bank accounts. The cameras will keep rolling until midnight. I headed for the door, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Trent, that gold watch you're so proud of? I had it appraised. It's fake, just like everything else about you. I walked out of the warehouse and into the cool night air, leaving behind the 3 people who tried to destroy my life. Behind me, I could hear them starting to argue, their voices echoing off the empty walls. My phone was buzzing with notifications from the live stream. Hundreds of viewers, thousands of comments, and more attention than I'd ever wanted. But for the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my own story. The live stream had over 10,000 viewers by the time I made it home. My phone was buzzing constantly with calls, texts, and social media notifications, but I ignored them all. I had one more performance to give. Sunday morning was the annual Riverside Community Fair, a small-town tradition where everyone gathered in Riverside Park to eat overpriced food, listen to bad local bands, and pretend they all liked each other. It was the perfect venue for my grand finale. I arrived early and found the event coordinator, a frazzled woman named Janet, who'd been running the fair for 20 years. James, I didn't expect to see you here today. Wouldn't miss. It. Actually, I was wondering if I could make an announcement during the opening ceremonies. She looked uncomfortable. What kind of announcement? Just some personal news I'd like to share with the community. Janet had obviously heard about the warehouse incident. Half the town had watched it live or seen the recordings by now. She probably thought I was going to apologize or make some kind of reconciliation speech. I suppose that would be fine. Keep it brief, though. The opening ceremony was scheduled for noon, right after the mayor's welcome speech. I spent the morning walking around the fair, nodding to people I knew, ignoring the whispers and stares that followed me everywhere. At 11:45, I made my way to the main stage where a small crowd had gathered. I could see Rebecca in the distance, standing with her sister and looking like she hadn't slept in days. Trent was nowhere to be seen, probably already left town for good this time. But Lisa was there, trying to blend into the crowd and avoid eye contact with anyone who might have seen the warehouse footage. The mayor finished his speech about community values and small-town pride, then introduced me as a longtime resident who has something to share with us today. I took the microphone and looked out at the crowd of maybe 200 people, neighbors, former friends, business associates, and strangers who'd come for the free entertainment. Thank you all for coming out today. I know many of you have heard about my recent personal difficulties. A few nervous chuckles from the audience. I want to take this opportunity to set the record straight about what really happened to my marriage. I could see Rebecca pushing through the crowd, probably trying to get close enough to stop me, but it was too late for that. 3 months ago, I discovered that my wife Rebecca was having an affair with a man named Trent Morrison. But that's not the interesting part. The crowd was completely silent now, hanging on every word. The interesting part is what happened when I tried to handle it like a civilized adult. My friends told me I deserved it because I wasn't successful enough. My family took her side without hearing mine, and my wife's best friend started blackmailing her to keep quiet about the affair. I could see people in the crowd looking around, trying to spot Rebecca and Lisa. So I decided to stop being the victim and start being the villain. I slashed tires, I moved money, I vandalized property, and I publicly humiliated everyone involved. Some people in the crowd were starting to look uncomfortable, probably wondering where this was going. And you know what I learned? Being the villain is a lot more fun than being the victim. I reached into my pocket and pulled out Rebecca's wedding ring, which I'd been carrying around for weeks. Rebecca, I know you're out there somewhere. This belongs to you. I threw the ring into the crowd, and it landed somewhere in the middle of the group with a small metallic ping. Trent, if you're still in town, here's some free advice. Find a woman who can actually afford you. I could see Lisa trying to work her way toward the back of the crowd, but people were blocking her path, probably recognizing her from the warehouse video. And Lisa, I hope the consulting fees were worth it, because you're about to find out what happens when you mess with someone who has nothing left to lose. I handed the microphone back to Janet, who looked like she was in shock. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for 20 years of friendship, judgment, and entertainment. I'm leaving town tomorrow, but I wanted you all to know I regret nothing. I walked off the stage and through the crowd, which parted in front of me like I was carrying a contagious disease. Behind me, I could hear the murmur of voices starting to build into a roar of conversation, but I wasn't done yet. As I reached the edge of the crowd, I turned back and shouted loud enough for everyone to hear, "Oh, and one more thing. If anyone's looking for a good appliance repair service, I'm officially retired. You'll have to find someone else to fix your broken shit." The crowd erupted in shock laughter and gasps, and I walked away from the Riverside Community Fair with my head held high for the first time in months. My truck was parked at the far end of the lot, and I was almost there when Rebecca caught up with me. "James, wait." I turned around and saw her running toward me, tears streaming down her face. "Please, we need to talk." "We already talked. The whole town heard it." "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know I hurt you. I know I made mistakes, but we can fix this." "Rebecca, some things can't be fixed. I should know. I've been in the repair business for 20 years. I love you. I've always loved you." "No. You loved what I represented. Security, stability, someone who wouldn't ask too many questions or expect too much in return." She was sobbing now, and part of me, the part that had loved her for 20 years, wanted to comfort her. But that part was buried under months of humiliation and betrayal. "What are you going to do now?" she asked. "I'm going to disappear. New town, new name, new life." "You can't just disappear. Watch me." I got in my truck and drove away, leaving Rebecca standing in the parking lot of the Riverside Community Fair, surrounded by the wreckage of the life we'd built together. As I drove through town one last time, I passed Murphy's Bar, where my former friends were probably already talking about my performance. I passed the appliance shop I'd built from nothing, which would be someone else's problem now. I passed the house where I'd lived for 15 years, which would be sold to pay for the lawyers and the lawsuits and the mess I was leaving behind. But for the first time in my adult life, I felt completely free. I had a storage unit full of supplies, a truck full of gas, and enough cash to start over anywhere I wanted. I had no wife, no friends, no business, and no reputation to protect. I had nothing left to lose, which meant I had everything to gain. The highway stretched out in front of me, empty and full of possibilities. In my rearview mirror, the town that had watched me transform from victim to villain grew smaller and smaller until it disappeared completely. They'd called me the last good man, right up until they realized I was never good at all. I was just patient. And now my patience had finally run out. I rolled down the windows, turned up the radio, and drove toward whatever came next, knowing that James Mitchell, the appliance repairman, the faithful husband, the reliable neighbor, was dead and buried in Riverside. Whoever I became next would be someone completely different, someone who didn't fix things, someone who broke them.